The second water-related death of the week was reported this morning after a tourist who was pulled from the waters near the Outrigger Hotel was pronounced dead at 6:20 a.m. Meanwhile, the search continues for an airman who was reported missing from Taragi Beach on Monday. PNC's Betsy Brown reports.
A tourist who was pulled from Tumon Bay yesterday afternoon was pronounced dead this morning at Guam Memorial Hospital. Units from the Guam Fire Department were called to the Outrigger Hotel for the apparent drowning yesterday at 3:35 p.m. The Japanese man, reported to be in his 50s, was listed in critical condition after arriving at GMH, but died at 6:20 this morning. GFD spokesman Lieutenant Ed Artero says life-saving efforts had already begun by the time units arrived on the scene.
By the time our units arrived, the individual had already been brought on shore. CPR was being conducted. Our units took over the scene, transported and continued CPR en route, and all the way into GMH emergency room.
Yesterday's rescue effort was the third water-related incident of the week. An 8-year-old girl passed away after drowning at Ipao Beach on Sunday, and search efforts continued this morning for an airman who was reported missing in the Taragi Beach area on Monday.
Yeah, December is normally the time of the year when the water conditions change. It gets a little bit more rough. Tide conditions are a little bit more different, so people need to be aware of those warnings and tide patterns.
The airman reported missing early Monday has been identified as 23-year-old Alec M. Dye, who is deployed to Guam with the 2nd Aircraft Maintenance Squadron from Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana. The Guam Police Marine Unit, U.S. Navy Helicopter Sea Combat Squadron 25, Coast Guard Station Apra Harbor, and the Coast Guard Cutter Washington have been conducting land and sea searches for the missing airmen. 36th Wing Vice Commander Colonel Tyrell Chamberlain says their thoughts and prayers are with Airman Dye and his family and friends. Betsy Brown, PNC News.
And an autopsy for the Japanese who passed away this morning is scheduled for tomorrow.
After Tumon Waters claimed 2 lives in less than a week, Department of Parks and Recreation Director Raymond Blas tells us he's looking to hire more lifeguards. PNC's Roselle Romanes has more in this report.
Department of Parks and Rec currently employs 7 lifeguards to watch over Ipao Beach, Matapang Beach, Hagatnya Pool, and Dedido Pool. But with the 2 recent drowning accidents, Director Raymond Blas is looking to hire more manpower.
Hopefully I can hire 2 to 3 more lifeguards.
His plan is for the department to have 10 lifeguards in total next year.
I think that if we have 9 to 10, we're sufficient enough to the areas that we are supposed to handle.
Blas says for Ipao and Matapang Beach, usually during the weekdays, there's only 1 lifeguard on duty. But during the weekends and other peak times, there are 2. Lifeguard Mike Benito says staffing right now is an issue.
As of now, we're still running on basically, you say, bare bones. The lifeguards here always want 2 lifeguards here at Ipao Beach because this is predominantly our more hazardous area. It's the deepest area throughout Tumon Bay. Staffing is one of the key issues that we have right now, but it's also working with like other hotels to let them know that watch their guests in front of their areas.
Benito says along with hotels often leaving their guests unattended around their area, he mentions other key problems.
The tourists that we do get on Guam, like I said, they're not too aware of their surroundings down here on this beach. These kind of beaches are totally different than their beaches back home. That's one of the major things that we get a lot is children unattended being watched by another child.
Benito makes these recommendations.
Don't depend on the lifeguard if he's watching the water to also watch your kids. You have to be there. If they can't swim, you should stay within arm's reach. Remember, the lifeguards are watching so many other people that it tends to be easy to miss it.
Bear in mind, we only handle Ipao Beach, okay, Matapang Beach, but you know, I don't care which part of Tumon Bay, if there's anything that's going on, our people will assist, even if it's not our area.
Blas says if he is able to hire more lifeguards, he would put more of them at the public beaches. Roselle Romanes, PNC News.
Under Guam law, all hotels and other businesses using beachfront property commercially for recreational purposes have to employ certified lifeguards from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. The Department of Parks and Recreation can also establish a lifeguard volunteer corps under the law.
And meanwhile, landowners in the Arunau-Ritidian area are afraid that the lack of repairs to Route 3A could slow rescue crews in the case of an emergency in the waters up there. The public road to the Arunau-Ritidian area is so bad that a private company has taken it upon themselves to patch potholes with gravel. Arunau landowner Pascual Artero is afraid that if tragedy were to strike in the waters around Arunau and Ritidian, rescue crews will have a hard time getting there because of the deplorable condition of Route 3A.
It's unfortunate when they get in trouble, and if they get in trouble in the water, we certainly want the rescue team, the emergency response team to get there on time, because if they don't get there on time, it's not going to be a rescue operation, it's going to be a recovery operation.
Route 3A is riddled with potholes. It's so bad that a private company, Coco Palm Beach Resort, has had no choice but to use their own crews to patch the road.
And it's unfortunate that a private firm company that runs a day tour operation down at Arunau, they have their employees actually repairing the road. These gentlemen are not road crew. They're using crude type equipment, and even the gravel is not the best gravel for repair.
The gravel was dumped there by the Department of Public Works. According to DPW Director Carl Dominguez, his employees are too busy to tend to this road, and Coco Palm Beach Resort volunteered to patch up the road if DPW could provide the gravel. Dominguez notes that a lot of the damage to the road is caused by the tour buses that travel on it. There are about 4 businesses down at Arunau that rely on tourists and numerous landowners and their families that need to access their property through Route 3A.
We got to do something to make it a lot more accessible, not only for the tourists, but even for the local people that are wanting to go to the wildlife refuge.
DPW Director Carl Dominguez says permanent repairs to Route 3A would cost anywhere from $3 to $5 million, and he says DPW simply doesn't have the funding for this.
A 46-year-old special education teacher has been accused of sexually molesting a minor several years ago when she was in the 5th grade. Mark Johnson Nicholas Tysapic was charged with second-degree criminal sexual conduct as a first-degree felony. Tysapic is a former 5th grade teacher at CL Taitano Elementary School. In the latest Department of Education staffing pattern, Tysapic was listed as a special education teacher. A magistrate's report says the case was forwarded to GPD from a school resource officer who took the complaint from the victim, who's now in high school. The victim told the school resource officer that when she was in the 5th grade, Mark John Tysapic, whom she says she was close to, had sexually molested her inside of a classroom. The girl says she didn't report the crime right away because she was afraid, but the girl told authorities that she was encouraged recently to report the incident after a sexual harassment lecture during health class brought back memories of what happened.
Billions of dollars in spending for the Guam military buildup have been freed up as House and Senate negotiators in Washington have reached a defense budget deal for fiscal year 2015. PNC's Washington correspondent Matt Kay has a story.
It seemed like it would never happen. Retiring Senate Armed Services Chair Carl Levin and incoming Chair John McCain restricted government of Japan and U.S. funds for the buildup several years ago and never let go. But now that the Pentagon has met their demand for a buildup master plan furnished last summer, the senators have lifted remaining restrictions on billions in Japan and U.S. funds. The National Defense Authorization Act, or NDAA, now heads first to the House floor, possibly Thursday, and then the Senate, after a logjam over compensation issues was broken. The 2015 NDAA frees up some $8.6 billion total in Japan and U.S. funds for the buildup over the next 10 years or so, or however long the buildup takes. The government of Japan has already agreed to contribute up to about $3 billion on the realignment. Japan has already given the U.S. about $1 billion, of which the Navy recently awarded a contract for some $44 million for site improvements at Anderson South after the Senate last year freed up some Japan funds. Now, Congresswoman Madeline Bordallo's office says NDAA 15 allows use of all Japan contributions anywhere on Guam, no stipulation whatsoever. More funds would flow once a record of decision is signed on the supplemental environmental impact statement. Bordallo's office adds the latest NDAA includes a provision to adjust build-up spending for inflation, which is likely to grow as construction ramps up. Also in the FY15 bill, military construction funds appropriated earlier but never authorized, and almost $35 million in new funds for an aircraft corrosion treatment facility at Anderson. The only bad news in the latest House-Senate deal, spending restrictions on civilian infrastructure remain. Bordallo's office says both DOD and incoming Senate Chair McCain have undercut Guam's case for the help, and a key report on the aid was not ready. Getting the broader Japan funding restrictions removed is a huge deal, the office says. But McCain takes over Senate Armed Services in January, and Bordallo will have to be even more mindful of McCain, an avid opponent of government waste and a longtime critic of civilian buildup spending on Guam. On Capitol Hill, Matt Kay for PNC News.